The bridge of the Tortuga was quiet, save for the hum of machinery and the soft beeping of consoles. Captain Elias Brandt sat in his command chair, fingers tapping absently on the armrest. Before him, a shimmering holographic display projected the looming silhouette of the Vraxian war fleet. The aliens had been tailing them for hours now, their sleek, predatory ships drifting just beyond optimal engagement range. Their transmissions were nothing but sneering laughter and dismissive comments in their grating, guttural tongue. "Human vessel, Tortuga, your engines are malfunctioning, yes?" came the translated voice of High Warlord Zervac. His tone oozed condescension. "Your speed is amusing." Lieutenant Sienna Park, the Tortuga's weapons officer, scowled at the comms display. "Captain, permission to respond with a torpedo barrage?" Brandt exhaled through his nose, suppressing a smirk. "Denied, Lieutenant." "Let them talk." Another voice crackled through the speakers. "What is the meaning of your design, Tortuga? Is it defective? An escort ship left behind by a real fleet?" The Vraxian bridge erupted in raucous laughter. Brandt leaned forward. "They don't get it." Commander Vasquez, his second in command, folded his arms. "They see our speed and assume weakness." It was true. The Tortuga was slow, painfully slow, by galactic standards. In a universe of sleek, nimble warships, it was a plodding giant. It wasn't built for speed. It was built for endurance, for resilience, for something no alien empire had ever encountered before: human attrition warfare. Brandt flicked a control on his chair, muting the alien transmission. "How long until we're in optimal engagement range?" 3 minutes, Captain," answered Ensign Cole, eyes fixed on his targeting display. 3 minutes was an eternity in a battle where most engagements lasted seconds. The Vraxians could have turned and fled at any moment, but they didn't. Why would they? To them, Tortuga was nothing more than a lumbering joke, a relic from a primitive race. Another transmission came through, dripping with disdain. "Human Captain, do you hear me? Is your ship's technology so outdated that you cannot reply in real time?" More laughter. Brandt finally gave them the courtesy of a response. "We hear you just fine, Warlord. And we're still here." He could imagine Zervac's sneer. "How courageous! A last stand, then? Shall we carve your names into the annals of foolish history?" Brandt checked the tactical display. 2 minutes. "Tell me something, Warlord," he said, keeping his tone casual. "How long do your battles usually last?" The Vraxian scoffed. "Seconds, sometimes minutes if the enemy is particularly stubborn. We strike like lightning. We do not waste time." Brandt smiled. "How efficient!" Zervac's arrogance was palpable. "And you, human? How long do you fight?" Brandt glanced at Vasquez, who was suppressing a grin of his own. Then he looked back at the display, his voice calm. "We don't stop." Silence. Just for a moment. Then more laughter. The Vraxians didn't understand. 1 minute. "Captain," Vasquez said, voice low. "They're getting closer. Let them." On the display, the Vraxian ships drifted forward, a predator playing with its food. They were well within firing range now, but they weren't attacking. Why waste energy? The Tortuga wasn't running. It wasn't maneuvering desperately like every other prey they had faced. It just kept coming. 30 seconds. Brandt turned his chair slightly. "Lieutenant Park." "Aye, Captain?" "Lock weapons on the flagship." Park's hands danced over the controls. "Locked." "Commander Vasquez." "Yes, sir." "Activate the armor." The Tortuga rumbled. Thick plates shifted, interlocking like the carapace of some ancient beast. A silent transformation, unnoticed by their enemies. Brandt unmuted the comms. "Warlord Zervac." The alien's voice was brimming with smugness. "Ah, you've finally accepted your fate?" Brandt leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "No, Warlord," he said, voice even. "We're ready." A beat of silence. Then Tortuga fired. It wasn't a graceful strike, nor was it elegant. There was no precision, no artistry. The humans did not fight like the aliens. They fought to win. The first salvo of kinetic slugs slammed into the Vraxian flagship before they even had time to register the attack. Shields flickered, armor buckled, and for the first time in its long and glorious history, the flagship of the Vraxian fleet recoiled. And the Tortuga did not stop. Missiles launched in rapid succession, their warheads packed with enough explosive force to shatter a cruiser in half. The Vraxian ships scrambled to evade, but they had been too close, too confident. On the bridge of the Tortuga, Brant watched the chaos unfold with a calm, measured gaze. He knew what was coming next. The Vraxians weren't just fast, they were reactionary. Their doctrine was built on immediate overwhelming force. They didn't understand prolonged engagements. "Captain?" Park called out. "They're retaliating!" Zervak's fleet opened fire, plasma bolts and energy lances lashing out. But the Tortuga did not flinch. Its armor absorbed the hits. It was designed for this, built from the ground up not to avoid damage, but to endure it. It didn't matter if they were slow. It didn't matter if they took a beating. Because they could take it longer than anyone else. Brant exhaled slowly. "Fire all batteries!" The ship shook as railguns thundered again. The flagship lurched, its elegant design now a scorched, twisted wreck. The once mocking fleet of Vraxian hunters was suddenly a cornered pack of animals. And they were panicking. "Enemy vessels maneuvering erratically," Cole reported. "They're trying to break formation." Brand nodded. "Good. Keep the pressure on them." He opened the comms one last time. "Warlord Zervak, you wanted to know how long we fight?" Silence. No laughter now. Brant leaned back in his chair. "We fight until you're gone." The battle had only just begun. But for the Vraxians, it was already over. Smoke poured from the Vraxian flagship as it drifted off course, trailing molten debris like a comet dying in slow motion. On the Tortuga's bridge, the tension had shifted. No one smiled yet. They knew better. Victory wasn't won in the first exchange, not against a predator used to dominating every battle it entered. Brant leaned forward. "Damage report?" Chief Engineer Holt's voice crackled through the intercom. "Superficial. Armor holding. No critical breaches. They're hitting us with energy, but our absorption layers are handling it." "Good," Brant said, eyes still locked on the tactical display. The Vraxian fleet was breaking formation. Confidence had vanished, replaced by uncertainty. Vasquez exhaled slowly. "They didn't expect us to punch back that hard. They don't understand humans," Brant replied quietly. The Vraxians, masters of speed and precision, relied on swift, clinical strikes. But the Tortuga was a different creature, slow, deliberate, impossible to dislodge once it planted itself. On the enemy comm channel, a sharp, guttural voice broke through, not Zervak this time, but one of his lieutenants. "Human warship, stand down! Cease hostilities and surrender. You've proven stubborn." The arrogance faltered, but it still lingered, like embers refusing to die out. Brant activated the comms. "Your fleet's in disarray. Stand down yourselves." The alien didn't reply. Instead, the tactical display flared with new movement. 3 Vraxian cruisers accelerated, veering toward the Tortuga's flanks. Their strategy was clear: divide and overwhelm. "Lieutenant Park, prepare flak arrays. Ensign Cole, keep tracking their lead ships." The Vraxians closed the distance in seconds, plasma cannons primed. "Brace!" The impact rocked the Tortuga. Plasma fire splashed across the reinforced hull, lighting the void in flickering arcs of blue and white. But the ship absorbed it, thick plating glowing red-hot, then cooling as heat sinks did their work. Sienna's voice cut through. "Flak arrays firing!" The sky lit with bursts of shrapnel and explosive countermeasures. 2 of the charging cruisers reeled back, their hulls pockmarked with impacts. One overcorrected its course and drifted too close. "Target that one," Brant ordered. Railguns barked, kinetic rounds ripping through the Vraxian ship's exposed midsection. The cruiser shuddered, its elegant lines crumpling under raw force. It spun out of control, venting atmosphere in thin, shimmering ribbons. The remaining ships broke off, fear finally cracking their resolve. "Commander," Brandt said calmly, "their pride's still dragging them forward, but not for long." Vasquez nodded. "They've never been in a fight they couldn't end fast. They're starting to panic." More movement on the display. The Vraxian flagship, limping but operational, began to retreat. The rest of the fleet wavered. Some followed, others hesitated, torn between pride and self-preservation. "Orders, Captain?" "Let them choose," Brandt said, "and punish whichever choice they make." Suddenly, the comms crackled again. This time, Zervak's voice returned, but without mockery. "Human vessel! You fight without elegance. Without honor. Why do you persist?" Brandt answered without hesitation. "Because honor doesn't shield you from railgun fire, warlord. Survival does." Silence hung in the air. Then, a cold reply. "You are different." Brandt muted the channel. "Yes. We are." The retreating ships began to cluster around the flagship, forming a defensive shell. But their formation was ragged, their confidence fractured. Vasquez studied the screen. "If we press them now..." Brandt shook his head. "They'll expect a chase. We hold position. Make them come to us again." It was a gamble, one that counted on Vraxian arrogance pushing them back into the fight rather than cutting their losses. He knew predators like Zervak hated leaving prey alive. Minutes passed. The enemy's ships hovered at a distance, exchanging frantic signals. Then, slowly, inevitably, they turned. "They're coming." Brandt gave a tight smile. "Right on schedule." This time, the assault was less confident. The Vraxians attacked in waves, testing Tortuga's defenses, probing for weaknesses. But there were none to find. Every time they struck, they were met with walls of metal and counter-fire. One Vraxian corvette darted too close. "Railguns, fire!" The projectile hit dead center, tearing the sleek vessel apart in a shower of molten fragments. The Vraxian fleet faltered. Zervak's voice returned, strained. "Why won't you fall?" Brandt answered flatly. "Because you never understood what we're built for." Humanity hadn't designed warships to look pretty or move fast. They built them to endure. To outlast. To stand while others crumbled. "Captain," Park said, eyes locked on her display. "They're pulling back again." Brandt narrowed his gaze. "Not a full retreat." She nodded. "No, they're regrouping. But they're done playing games." On the screen, the flagship began charging a superweapon. Vasquez stiffened. "That'll punch through anything we have." Brandt stood slowly. "Not if we get inside its minimum firing range first." Sienna's head whipped around. "Captain, we're slow. We can't close distance in time." Brandt's voice was steady. "We don't need to." He pointed to the tactical screen. "Ensign Cole, recalibrate targeting. Aim for their weapon arrays. Full salvo." Cole's fingers danced across the console. "Target locked. Fire." The Tortuga's railguns roared one last time. Round after round hammered the enemy flagship's forward section. The glowing superweapon faltered, then erupted in a chain reaction. The flagship became a burning sphere of light, rupturing from within. The remaining ships scattered. "Stand down," Brandt ordered. "Let them run." The bridge fell silent. Vasquez exhaled. "That's it." Brandt nodded, his voice quiet but certain. "They'll think twice before mocking a slow ship again." The silence in space after battle was always unsettling. No screams, no fire crackling in oxygen-rich air, just cold debris and drifting wreckage. On the Tortuga's bridge, every crew member sat still, watching enemy vessels scatter like frightened birds. Brandt finally broke the stillness. "Damage report." Chief Engineer Holt's voice came steady through comms. "Hull integrity stable. Some scorched plating, one vented secondary compartment, but systems are green." "Casualties?" "None." Brandt let out a slow breath, only now feeling the weight on his chest ease. "Good work." Vasquez turned from the display. "They're retreating toward the Helix corridor. No pursuit signals." We broke their formation, their pride, and their nerve. Brant folded his hands. They'll regroup. Maybe not soon, but they'll remember this. Cole adjusted his screen. Sir, we're receiving a private transmission. Brant raised an eyebrow. Open it. The hollow display flickered, revealing Warlord Zervac. The alien's face, once full of arrogance, was now unreadable, tight, controlled, and bruised with defeat. Brant kept his expression neutral. Warlord. Zervac spoke slowly, his words careful. We did not understand your design philosophy. You weren't meant to, Brant replied. The alien's eyes narrowed. We build for speed and precision. You build for survival. Brant nodded. That's human history in one sentence. A long silence followed. Then, unexpectedly, Zervac's mandibles twitched in what might have been respect. This engagement was not as we anticipated. Anticipation is overrated, Brant said dryly. Another pause. I will not insult you by threatening further conflict, Zervac said. But I must ask, why reveal this strength now? We believed you weak. Brant leaned forward. That belief served us well, Warlord. But sometimes patience runs out. Zervac inclined his head, not quite a bow, but close enough. The transmission cut. Vasquez shook his head, a small smile tugging at his mouth. I never thought I'd see a Vraxian warlord humbled. They learn faster than they admit, Brant replied. Sienna Park's voice broke the moment of reflection. Captain, sensors are picking up multiple distress beacons from debris fields. Survivors. Brant considered. The enemy had fled, licking their wounds. But out there, in the cold wreckage, Vraxian crew members clung to life. Prepare recovery drones, Brant ordered. Vasquez blinked. Sir, you're ordering rescue ops for enemy combatants? Brant turned, face calm but firm. We don't leave anyone to suffocate in the dark. Even them. Vasquez hesitated only a second before nodding. Aye, sir. The next hour was methodical and quiet. Drones retrieved Vraxian survivors, dragging them aboard in containment pods. The atmosphere on the ship shifted again. The adrenaline of battle gave way to unease. The Vraxians had been enemies minutes ago, merciless, mocking. Now they sat behind force fields in the brig, wounded, confused, and silent. Brand visited the holding bay himself. He stopped before the transparent barrier of the first pod. Inside, a Vraxian officer, tall, battered yet still defiant, locked eyes with him. You should have finished us, the alien rasped. That's not how we do things, Brand said simply. The alien's gaze flickered. Mercy or weakness? Brand met his eyes without blinking. Neither. Survival. The alien bared sharp teeth, but Brand could see the exhaustion beneath the hostility. He turned back toward Vasquez, who followed behind. They'll report what happened here, Vasquez said. Good, Brand replied. Let them. A chime sounded over the intercom. Cole's voice filtered in. Captain, incoming civilian vessel hails. It's from the Helix mining colony. They picked up the battle on long-range sensors and are requesting confirmation of safety. Brand touched his earpiece. Open channel. A nervous voice crackled through. Human warship, this is Station Helix Control. Are we clear to continue operations? Brand spoke evenly. This sector is secure. Resume operations under standard caution protocols. There was a pause. Then the voice, smaller now, filled with genuine awe. We saw what you did. Thank you, Brand simply replied. Stay safe, Control. The channel closed. Vasquez looked over. We were the punchline of every alien Navy joke last month. And now? They'll be rewriting their manuals. Brand smiled faintly. That's enough for me. Hours passed. The Tortuga continued slow patrol across the debris field, scanning for anything overlooked. The crew operated with a quiet, professional focus, tired but proud. In the mess hall later, murmurs filled the room. Crew members traded glances, half laughing, half shaking their heads at how absurd the day had been. Captain? Brant turned to find Sienna approaching with a data slate. The final count, 37 Vraxian survivors rescued. Some critical. They'll need medical attention beyond our capacity. Brant nodded. We'll transfer them to a neutral medical station. She hesitated. Permission to speak freely? Granted. She looked him in the eye. You didn't have to do this. He met her gaze. We did. She held his look for a second longer, then gave a small nod and left. Vasquez slid into the seat across from him. You think they'll change? Not right away, Brant admitted. But they'll remember. That matters. The two men sat in silence. Outside the reinforced viewing panels, stars drifted slowly by. The Tortuga crawled forward, not fast, not graceful, but unbroken. Vasquez finally chuckled. Slow and steady. Brant's lips twitched. And dangerous. Neither of them said another word. The ship hummed on, its course steady, its crew ready. Somewhere, far behind them, the Vraxians were rethinking everything they thought they knew about humanity. And that was exactly how Brant preferred it. The Tortuga moved through space like a mountain on the march. Wreckage drifted behind them, and a silence settled over the crew that was heavier than any battle tension. The Vraxians had been humbled, but victory always came with questions that never left. Brant sat alone in his quarters, sipping cold coffee. The walls around him hummed with the ship's quiet systems, but his mind wasn't at rest. He turned the small, dented brass coin in his hand, a relic passed down from his grandfather, who had captained slow freighters during humanity's earliest colony expansions. Ships that couldn't outrun anything, only endure. The door chimed. Come! Vasquez stepped in. His uniform was rumpled, and exhaustion showed in his face, but his eyes were sharp. Fleet Command just sent a secure message. Brant raised an eyebrow. Vasquez held out the tablet. They watched the entire engagement. Live. Brant took the device. The message was short, direct. Captain Brant. Exceptional demonstration of endurance-based combat doctrine. Reconsideration of ship design philosophies currently underway. Return to Earth Command for debrief and consultation. He set the tablet down. It only took them 20 years of calling us obsolete. Vasquez smirked. Turns out the slow dog has a hell of a bite. Brant leaned back. They'll want to make more ships like Tortuga now. Is that a bad thing? He thought for a long moment before answering. It's either good nor bad. It's heavy. Vasquez frowned. Brant set the coin down. We designed Tortuga to hold the line, to take hits no one else could. But not every crew will have the patience to sit and endure. They'll want to turn it into something it's not. A hammer instead of a shield. Vasquez's eyes narrowed. You think they'll ruin the design? I think, Brant said quietly, they'll misunderstand it. Just like the Vraxians did. A soft chime broke their conversation. Sienna Park's voice filled the room. Captain, we're approaching the Helix medical station. Brant rose. Let's deliver our guests. The brig was quiet when they arrived. The Vraxian prisoners, confined but stable, turned to face him as he entered. He studied them one last time. They were proud, even in defeat, but he saw something else in their eyes now, not fear, not hatred, but consideration. Zervac wasn't among them. He had fled with the surviving fleet. But Brant knew this moment mattered more than any final exchange of fire. The Vraxian officer from before met his gaze through the force field. You could have let us drift. We don't fight like that. The alien's head tilted slightly. I will remember. Brant inclined his head. Captain, Vasquez said quietly, the station is ready for transfer. Brant gave the order. One by one, containment pods were moved into the shuttle bay, where station medics awaited them. No parting words were exchanged. None were needed. When the last pod was gone, Brant stood in the empty bay, staring out into space. Vasquez spoke softly. You know what's coming next? Brant nodded. The war colleges will dissect every second of this. They'll run simulations, try to fit it into neat doctrines. But it's not doctrine. No. Vasquez folded his arms. It's human instinct. Brandt smiled faintly. And that's something you can't blueprint. The comms chimed again. Captain, civilian ships requesting clearance to return to mining operations. Grant clearance. And offer escort. The crew complied, and soon civilian freighters filled the void, slow, ponderous vessels not unlike Tortuga. Ships built to endure long hauls through dangerous regions. Brandt watched them move and felt something tighten in his chest. Sir? Vasquez prompted. They look like prey, Brandt said softly. Vasquez nodded. Until they're not. Hours later, with all duties settled, Brandt found himself standing in the observation deck. The stars shone like cold diamonds, distant and indifferent. Sienna approached quietly. Permission to join you? Granted. She stood beside him, both of them gazing at the drifting void. You taught us something today, she said. Brandt didn't look at her. What's that? That speed and style don't matter. Persistence does. He nodded once. Space isn't kind to the impatient. She hesitated, then added, The crew talks about you like you're one of those old captains from Earth's first deep space missions. The ones who sat for months in cold silence, waiting, enduring. Brandt exhaled slowly. Those men and women understood what it meant to face the unknown. We just reminded everyone. A soft ping interrupted the moment. Message from Fleet Command, sir, Sienna said. Brandt turned. Play it. Admiral Yao's face appeared, stern but respectful. Captain Brandt. The fleet has learned from your example. New hull designs and endurance combat strategies are entering prototyping. You and your crew are to be commended. Your legacy will shape the next generation of human warships. Brandt's jaw tightened. Yao's image faded. Sienna studied his expression. You're not happy. I am, he said softly. But it's a responsibility now. She smiled. We'll carry it. He looked at her for a long moment. Yes. You will. The stars beyond them burned on, silent, eternal and watching. And the Tortuga, slow and steady, began her long course home.